What's going on, beautiful people? Thank you for tuning in and watching, listening to my rants and rambles. And I got another ramble here for you guys. See how many people we piss off now. For me, the best verse in the Quran, or in English would be Quran, right? Now, look. Again, I have to make the disclaimer, the same disclaimer I made in the beginning of the video for the best verse in the Bible, right? Don't be preaching down below about Muhammad and Islam is the way and, you know, may Allah give you the right path, right? Look, again, what I'm trying to do here, because if you've been watching my videos long enough, you know I was raised a Muslim. I'm no longer a Muslim. What I'm trying to do, however, now, I'm trying to be a little bit more level-headed about it all. Because, you know, I talk a lot of shit here about institutionalized religions and institutions in general. I'm not a big fan of institutions, right? But what I'm trying to do right now is I'm trying to see the best in every philosophy, in every ideology, in every belief system. Without taking on the belief system, without clinging to it, without attaching to it. Right? Just kind of like, oh, hey, that's kind of cool. Let me talk about that and let me use that in my life and maybe somebody else can, right? So, you know, we'll try and go with that approach from now on. But, you know, here and there we'll be shit talking, obviously, because a shit talker's got a shit talk, right? So, for me, personally, the best verse in the Quran, and I've read the Quran before several times, and I actually, as a kid, I memorized the last like three, I guess what you would call them. There's like 30 parts to the Quran, right? So I memorized as a kid the last 4 parts, you know, because usually people who memorize the Quran, they start all the way from like 30 and they go back to 1 because it's like the smaller verses there. Anyway, for me, best verse is Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim, which is actually in the beginning of every surah, which is verse, or I don't know what you would call it, but it's in the beginning of every like major verse in the Quran, right? Every major surah. It's Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. So let me explain what that means. In the name of God, the benevolent, the merciful. In the name of God, the benevolent, the merciful. And that is like, that literally is the first verse in the Quran, right? If you open up any Quran, Arabic, right? The first verse in every Quran, the first verse, Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. In the name of God, the merciful, the benevolent. So, what I like about this is, despite the fact, okay? Despite the fact that there's more than one verse in the Quran that encourages violence and killing. Okay, now I know a lot of people are already pissed off at me now, right? Again, I knew it was going to piss off some people here. Despite the fact that if you go into the Quran, and there's several verses there that encourage violence, okay? Still, the first verse and the verse that is before every surah, every, you know, whatever. There's, I don't know how many surahs there. So it's like literally probably the most said verse in the Quran. Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Still there's an acknowledgement there that God is benevolent, that God is merciful, that God is love. And that's the truth. That's the truth. The truth is God is all accepting. And this verse shows you that God is all accepting. God is merciful. God is benevolent. And God is all accepting because it's all God. Everything is a manifestation of God, including the shit, the most horrific shit. It's all a manifestation of the Tao. It's all a manifestation of the Tao, of the Force, right? It's all manifestations of God. If God allowed these manifestations to occur, then God accepts all. God accepts all beings. God accepts all manifestations, you know? When a lion chops off a zebra's head, God accepts. Both of them are manifestations of God. It's just one manifestation is being eaten, the other manifestation is eating. You know, and in the same way, Same thing with, you know, humans, right? Like a black hole, for example. A black hole sucks light into it. We don't look at it as evil. God accepts it because it is God. You know, in the same way, us humans with all our behaviors and the nasty and the good and the greed and the lust and the kindness and all of it, and all ideologies and all belief systems and everything, God is all accepting. You see, and I'm figuring that out as I'm going about life, that God is all accepting, which is why I'm making this video, because I'm trying to reconcile my my despise for Islam as an institution, because I grew up in a very conservative environment and everything was fed, like force-fed, right? But I'm trying to accept that too. To the best of my ability here, you know. Again, the shit talking has to happen. But I'm seeing that God is all accepting. If it's manifesting, then God accepts it. Then God accepts Muslims. God accepts Christians. God accepts Jews. God accepts atheists. God accepts punks. God accepts gays and transgenders and whatever the fucking cisgender and all that shit, right? God accepts all of it. All of it, because it is happening. It is a manifestation of God. Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. In the name of God, the merciful, the benevolent. And if everybody, whether they're practicing Islam or whether they're practicing nothing, if everybody can understand these two words, the merciful, the benevolent, then we can maybe have a better world here, a more accepting world, you know, that is, you know, because, you know, we live in a very judgmental world. Everybody's judging, you know. This is the same thing with like people who get spiritual, right? They start to judge each other. Oh, your path is the right path, or my path is the right path. I'm doing it better than you. I'm more enlightened than you. So you're passing a judgment now, instead of honoring that to each his own path to liberation, really. To each his own path to moksha, to nirvana. There's no one path. You understand what I'm saying? And really, like, if Muslims can really like take this to heart in the name of God, the benevolent, the merciful, then perhaps we can have more peace in the Middle East, more tranquility, you know, because I mean, look at the Middle East, it's a fucking mess. Shias want to fight Sunnis, even though they're the same religion. It's like, you guys even read the same Quran, right? You guys read the same book, the same fucking book. Read what it says in the beginning of it, the first verse. And read what it says throughout the Quran. And before every major verse or surah, right? It says, Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. In the name of God, the merciful, the benevolent. Where is that mercy? Where is that benevolence? You're not showing this benevolence and mercy to anyone. You know, if you wanted to actually, like, if you want to summarize the entire book, the entire truth of Islam, if you want to skip reading the Quran and just take this one verse, this is why it's I don't know if it's the most recurring verse in the Quran, but it has to be at least top 5, top 10. Take this one verse, Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim, and that's right there is the truth. God is love, God is benevolent, God is merciful, God is all accepting. God is all accepting. So I hope more people can look into this. And I'm a fan, you know who I'm a fan? I'm a fan of Sufis. I'm a big fan of Sufis. If I was ever, again, nobody fucking preached me in the comments or anything, but if I was ever to, let's say, become a Muslim again, right? Become a Muslim, attached to it, to a belief system. If ever that was to happen, which I mean, chances are probably fucking 0. I would go the Sufi path, because these guys, to me, understood the message of Muhammad, who was a high conscious being. His consciousness was higher than mostly everybody at the time. You know, just if you see him as a person and you read some of the stuff that he said, Again, some of it is, there's some violence in there, right? But I'm trying to look at the best, I'm trying to put everything here in the best light possible. You will realize and you will know that he was a higher consciousness being at the time, right? And the truth, which I think he was pretty close to it, is in this, summarized in this one verse, that God is love, God is all accepting. Except it's all God. Of course, God, you think God has a choice to accept or doesn't accept? God doesn't have a choice, because it is all God. We're in the mind of God. We're in a dream. We're in the dream state right now. God is just imagining, and that's where the imagination of ourselves, where God is, we're one consciousness experiencing itself subjectively. Now back to the Sufis, right? I don't want to go off too many tangents here. The Sufis, they understand this, that we're all one consciousness. They understand it, and they put it into practice. This is why they do their dancings, right? If you ever see the Sufis dance, they dance like this. They do their dancings because it puts them in a trance state, and they become one with everything. And if you listen, I listen to Sufi music, and if you listen to their chants, you know, their chants are full of gratitude and full of benevolence and full of, you know, metaphors and beautiful poetry that preaches oneness, that preaches unity, that preaches love. You know, Rumi, who's, you know, gotta be the most famous Sufi teacher slash poet, his entire poetry was based on love. It was based on the idea that God is benevolent, that God is love. So, from my point of view, from my perspective, the Sufis are the ones that understood this the most in Islamic traditions. Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. God, in the name of God, the most merciful, the most benevolent. Anyway, I'll finish off the video here. God knows how many dislikes I'll get. God knows how much hate I'm gonna get and how many people I pissed off and made butt hurt in this video. Doesn't matter. It is what it is. I'm just siding, and that's what happens to be going out of my mouth into the camera and boom, into your ears. God bless you all. Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. In the name of God, the merciful, the benevolent. God is love. I love you guys. I love every single one of you. But don't forget to subscribe, or you're gonna sleep with the fishes. So subscribe.